So I've been asked tonight, excuse me, to share a little piece of my story on how love has impacted my life. I am the father of a beautiful, talented 4-year-old girl. I'm also the husband to an incredible woman who supports the man that I am, as well as the man that I'm not. I am queer and I'm fluid. What I mean by fluid is that I'm open and able to fall in love with anyone, regardless of their sexual orientation or gender. I try my best to see people for who they truly are, and not by how society chooses to categorize them. I am white, I am black, Mexican, Indian, and Samoan. I consider myself to be racially and sexually universal. My ethnicity and sexual orientation are far too complex to ever categorize, and at times far too complex to even comprehend. I'm originally from Oahu, and at the age of 2, my parents separated. And when I was 6, my mom decided to move my 2 older brothers and I to Cheney, Washington. To show of hands, how many of you have heard of Cheney? Right. That's more than I thought. So let me tell you, there's not a whole lot going on there, but what is there is good people. It took me quite a while to realize why my mom would move us away from Hawaii, which is such a diverse melting pot of different cultures, and into a conservative, predominantly white country town. With age, I came to realize it's because my mom's excuse me, a twin, and there was no way she'd be able to part from her strongest support system, my Auntie Losa, who was relocating here to Washington State. So it was around the time that I was in elementary school that I began to feel different. For example, while my 2 older brothers were out playing football and basketball and soccer, I was at home pretending to be Whitney Houston. I love her. Another example is that as I matured, my attraction towards the same sex, it grew. And while I was too young to understand my own sexuality, I was old enough to know that what I was internalizing wasn't acceptable. Queer visibility in Cheney was pretty much non-existent. People who behaved effeminately or who were brave enough to come out were bullied and tormented. I didn't have the strength to come out. And so I created this masculine facade, or what I thought was, and I remained in the shadows out of fear of facing the same discrimination. So it was shortly after I graduated that a dear good friend of mine, Melissa, she invited me to move here to Seattle. And I just ran with it. I ended up packing up my belongings. I put in my notice at work, and I was just out of there. And I just said deuces to Eastern Washington. And I ended up moving into an apartment right across the street from our place. It was the first time in my life that I'd ever been able to experience queer culture. Moving from Cheney and into the heart of Capitol Hill, it's like my mind was blown. I couldn't believe it. And it was the first time that I was able to witness such an active, thriving queer community. I knew that this was where I belonged. And when I came out, it was amazing. And it was just something hard to explain. And there was just no more hiding. There was no more shame. And most of all, it's just like my family, they accepted me for who I am. So over the next few years, I experienced 2 relationships that were extremely intense with 2 incredible men who turned out to be complete assholes. So I just had but they ended up capturing a piece of my heart. They taught me so much about myself and so much about love. And fast forward a couple years later, I began dating my future wife. It's like, what? It's like, I didn't realize that after coming out, I find myself in a heterosexual relationship, but the love and the connection and intimacy that I share with my wife, it was something that I'd never felt before. And it's something that I still feel here today, almost 10 years later. And she was able to look past my sexuality, and she was able to see the person that was within me. She accepted me for who I am. She didn't care that I was with dudes. She just loved me. And so I think it was only fitting for some of my gay friends to start poking fun at me. They began teasing me. They're just like, we're going to revoke your gay card because you're with a woman. And I didn't take what they had to say personally. But I think after some time, I began feeling disconnected from the queer community. And so instead of moping around, just kind of like sitting, just like depressed about it, I took a proactive approach and I began stalking the volunteer coordinator at Gay City Health Project. I'm tired of this. And so I didn't know a whole lot about Gay City, but I knew that it was gay. And I knew that it was somewhere I wanted to be. And so once I scored a volunteer position there, I quickly realized that this was the social interaction that I needed. It's like being there made me realize that there were other individuals who shared the same experiences as me, and they could easily relate. I didn't realize that walking through the doors of Gay City would change my life forever. And it's because of Gay City, as well as the influence from our queer community, that I was able to find truth within myself. And through all the years of personal growth and self-discovery, it's like I'm still learning, but I have a much better understanding of who I am. In May, it'll actually be 7 years that I've been with the organization. And just being surrounded by such an incredible group of people, it's really given me this appetite. It strengthened my appetite for activism. I didn't realize how passionate I was about marriage equality until I really just joined the cause. Before Referendum 74 was approved here in Washington State, I began engaging in conversations with friends, with family, as well as with people who shared opposite views. And I found myself one night, I was driving back home to West Seattle. Any West Seattle peeps in here? Yeah, all right, there we go. Not many. But I ended up pulling to the side right at the West Seattle entrance, and I ended up decorating it full of approved Referendum 74 signs. And as small of an act as this may seem, it was probably one of my proudest moments because I was standing up for something that I believe in. And so once marriage equality was passed in 2012, couples from throughout the world began traveling here to Washington State, to Seattle, to marry. But under Washington State law, 2 people must be witnesses during a wedding ceremony. And so Gay City and GSBA, Greater Seattle Business Association, they realized that couples who were traveling here were having difficulties finding witnesses, and so they created a witness program called Can I Get a Witness? Which is pretty fitting. And with it, it's like I've had the honor of being one of the coordinators from it. And to date, this little program has been able to provide witness assistance for couples visiting from Colorado, Texas, Florida, Uganda, and Japan. I mean, feedback from everyone involved has been outstanding, from judges, witnesses, and participants. And so one night it was actually Christmas Eve 2013. I was laying my baby girl down to sleep, and I was thinking about the impact of the witness program And I was like, what else can we do? What can we do? And so that's when this idea of creating a documentary came into mind. And I told myself that the purpose of this film would be to spread love. But there was one huge problem. It's like I had absolutely no idea how I was going to bring this to life. I didn't know anyone who had a background in film. And so miraculously, over the next 2 months, my team was assembled. I somehow managed to pitch my idea to people who knew what they were doing, and they were there to share my vision. We were able to create Ace of Hearts Productions, and we were able to secure fiscal sponsorship for our film through Gay City, which is pretty sweet. To date, it's actually in April, it'll be a year since we began filming. And we've been able to document 8 couples, 2 of which are King County judges. We also had the privilege of documenting Mama Tits, local Seattle icon, who last summer stood up against anti-gay protesters during Pride March. It's like marriage represents more than just a piece of paper. That piece of paper could mean so much to someone who has a dying partner in the hospital and who is unable to make legal decisions because they are not blood related or family. So my team, we hope that this film will allow people to open up their hearts as well as their minds. We hope that you will be able to connect to the stories that are in this film. And I think most importantly, it's like we hope that you'll be inspired by the couples who have beat enormous odds to fall in love and get married, which is something that is commonly taken for granted. Thank you once again for this opportunity. If you'd like to keep up to date with this project, please follow us at Ace of Hearts Productions. And ladies and gentlemen, I would like to present our first look at Same Love, Different State.
This is a very proud moment. Most surely, it is a proud day in the history of the legislature and in the state of Washington.
In 2012, Washington state made history when it became the 7th state to legalize marriage equality when Referendum 74 was approved by popular vote. Same-sex couples from around the world began traveling to the Northwest to marry. We set off to tell the stories of these brave couples who came to Seattle to fulfill their wedding dreams during this time of change. A year later, marriage equality was progressing rapidly throughout the nation, giving us an opportunity to tell an even bigger story.